Okay, next dinim after what's called ikar and tofel, primary and secondary, the din is, what do you make a bracha on first? So let's say you're eating, there's a fruit platter in front of you, a fruit plate, and you want to eat a bunch of the fruits, and they're all ha'etz. They're all the same bracha. So what do you make the bracha on first? So the din is like this. If you like a particular food, let's say you like this particular fruit, you make a bracha on the fruit that you like first, even if you're eating a bunch of them. But if what you like is on the plate, you make a bracha over the food that you like, and then obviously you don't have to make a bracha on the other fruits. What happens if they're all the same to you? They're all the same. So the general rule is, if it's the fruits of Eretz Yisrael, that Eretz Yisrael is praised with, meaning dates, figs, pomegranate, olive, grapes, huh? Dates, figs, olives, grapes, pomegranates. Okay? Now, then the din is, you make a bracha on them first. Of them themselves, what goes first? I'm going to be eating grapes and dates and figs and pomegranate. What do I make? And I like them all. They're all the same to me. And I'm going to make ha'etz on them. Which one should I make the bracha on? So the din is like this. In the pasuk, it says, this is where you need we used to call them a blackboard. Now they call it a whiteboard. You have the smart board? Okay. Don't sell whiteboards anymore? Okay. So anyway, the pasuk says like this. Eretz, when the Torah speaks about the 7 species, the Torah starts off like this. Eretz, chita, u'se'era, wheat, barley, gefen, figs, grapes, te'ena, figs, v'rimain, and pomegranate. Then the Torah says again, Eretz, zeis, shemen, which is olives, udvash, honey, which means dates. Okay, so the Torah uses the word eretz twice. So the rule is, whatever is closer to the word aretz has precedence. That means, if you have eretz chita, wheat, then barley, gefen is grapes, te'ena is figs, right? Then the Torah says, zeis shemen, olives, udvash, and dates. Pomegranates. Okay, so now, the closest one to Eretz is wheat. Therefore, the din is, wheat comes before everything. Which means, just in practicality, if somebody is eating cake and wine, sitting down to Fabrengen, you're going to have cake and you're going to have wine. Not whiskey, because that's shako. But you're going to have cake and wine. What do you make a bracha first on? So the din is first you make a bracha on the cake. Why? Because the cake comes from chita, wheat. And wheat is number 1 from the pasuk. Gefen, grapes, which includes wine also, is number 3 from the pasuk. Okay? So therefore, first you make a bracha on the cake, and then you make a bracha on the wine. What happens though, if somebody is eating grapes and olives? So they're all the same to you. You have grapes and olives. What should you make the ha'etz on? Grapes. On the olives. Why? Because grapes is number 3. Chita, sa'ira, wheat, barley, then grapes. From the second eretz, zei shemen, olives, is number 1 from the pasuk, eretz. So therefore, olives comes before grapes. Not only does olive come before grapes, but dates comes before grapes. Because again, gefen is number 3 in the pasuk, and the zeis shemen udvash, the dvash is honey, which means dates, is number 2 from eretz. So therefore, the order is as follows: just of the fruits, of the 5 fruits out of the 7, the 5 fruits. Yeah, but you're not supposed to be parking here. Which one's yours? So now you have the 5 fruits. So the first one to make a bracha on is olive, then dates, then grapes, then figs, and then pomegranates. So that would be the order. If you're eating all of them or different ones, what's the order? The first one you make ha'etz on if you're eating it is olives, then dates, then grapes, then figs, and then pomegranates. What?
Olives versus barley. The whole second.
Olives versus barley. So the din is because barley is the first eretz and dates is the second eretz, barley goes before dates. That's because there's a first and a second, okay? Just like wheat and barley. So the order really would be as follows: wheat, barley, olives, dates, grapes, figs, pomegranates. That would be the order if you're eating and you decide which one you want to go first. So you just have to look at the pasuk and you realize which one is the closest to the word aretz, and that's the one that goes first.
But if you have a favorite, then you just make it on the favorite.
If you have a favorite, you just do the one you like. Nothing else matters. In fact, they tell a story that a bunch of people that wanted to test the Tzemach Tzedek to see if he knew how to learn. Now, brachos could be pretty complicated. What goes first, second, third, fourth, because we didn't even get into this. Then you have a din of a whole fruit versus a half a fruit. Whole comes before fruit, half. And the question is, what happens if you have a whole peach, but a half a grape? But the grape is from Israel, and this isn't. It's a lot of complications. So they wanted to test the Tzemach Tzedek, the opponents of the Tzemach Tzedek wanted to test him to see if he knew how to learn. So they brought him a massive fruit plate with every possible complication that could be in halacha. And the Tzemach Tzedek took a fruit, and he made ha'etz on it, and it wasn't at all in the order of what should have been. So he said, aha, you see, you're not, he said, what are you talking about? This is the one I want to eat. And this is the one I want to eat. This is what I'm making a bracha on. What are you doing? He understood they wanted to test him. So he davka took. By the way, there's another interesting argument. What does it mean, the food that you like? Some pasuk, does it mean what you like now or what you always like? Let's say you like peaches better than apples. But now I want an apple. So do you go by now or do you go by... So the Alter Rebbe says it doesn't matter. Whether you like it now or the one you always like, even if you can go by now. Right now I want to eat an apple, I'm going to eat the others too. But right now I like the apple, you make ha'etz on the apple. Before the grapes and the dates and the figs and everything. What?
So if you have one of the 5 fruits of Israel, then you like, let's say, a peach better.
Then you make a bracha on the peach.
Even before the 5 fruits of Israel?
Yeah. If that's what you like, the din is like this. What you like goes first. Then the next din is, if they're all equal, then the fruits of Israel come first. The 5 fruits.
And would you make it halachos or would you make it halachos?
It depends what you're eating. If you're eating only a peach, plum, apple, then you make a brain nefashos. If you're eating the concise of grapes and dates and things like that, then you make halachos or priyos. Now, what happens if you're only eating fruit? You're eating grapes and figs and apples and pears, and you're eating everything, a whole bunch of fruits. The after bracha, you don't have to make a beri nefashos. Even though for apple, pears, all that, the after bracha is beri nefashos. But the fact that you're eating the fruits of Eretz Yisrael also, and on that you have to make halachos for priyos. So once you say halachos for priyos for the prominent fruits of Israel, that covers all fruits. So you don't have to make a beri nefashos. If you ate other food that's not fruits, obviously you would have to make a beri nefashos.
Covers Adama too or no?
What?
So Adama doesn't cover, does it?
No, it doesn't cover Adama. All the fruits that I just saw was praised with are all ha'etz. They're not Adama. They're none of the fruits of...
Wheat, if you eat by itself?
Wheat by itself? What do you mean wheat by itself?
You roast it and eat it.
It's to take a kernel of wheat and roast it? The brachos are adama.
So
The only prominence of wheat and barley is only when you make it into a flour and you cook it or bake it. Cooking would make it mezainis like we learned, and baking it would make it ameti if it's flour and water. But you take a lot of times in the cereals, you see rolled oats or you see whole oats, in the breakfast cereals. That's not a mezainis. The only time it's a mezainis when it's made into a flour. But like we explained before, you have certain flourless breads, like the Ezekiel breads, those type of breads which are flourless, they're called. Even though the government calls them flourless, but the way it's made, halachically it's a flour, and therefore it would be hametzi. But if it wouldn't be a flour, Flour, if it wouldn't be flour, then you either make adama if it's pieces, or if it's ground up, not into a flour, you just grind it up, then you make adama. You make a shahako.
Did you say bracha on every one of them, or just it covers all of them?
No, if you're planning to eat all of them, then you make ha'etz, and one for all of them. What happens if you said, there's also a complicated din. What happens, there's a whole fruit plate in front of me, and I say, I'm only going to eat an apple. And then afterwards you change your mind, you say, I want to eat a peach also. So now the question is, did you think about that when you make ha'etz or not? So the din is, because it's in front of you on the table, even though you only thought you're going to eat the peach, it covers the apple also. But if you're sitting down, you go into your refrigerator, this happens very often, right? You take a fruit from your refrigerator, so you take a peach from the fridge, you sit down and you make ha'etz and you eat it, in your mind you're only eating the peach. Then you say, you know what? I want to take an apple. You'd have to make ha'etz on the apple because it wasn't in front of you and you didn't have it in mind. So then you would have to. So therefore it says in halacha, practically speaking, that when you make ha'etz on fruits, have in mind, whatever I'm going to be eating in this sitting is counted in the ha'etz. What?
How about like I say, I make a mezainis on a cupcake, yeah? And then 20 minutes later, I come across a cookie.
It was on the table or somewhere else?
Somewhere else.
Then you have to make a new mezainis.
Same room, but somewhere else.
You have to make a new mezainis. If it wasn't in front of you and you didn't have in mind that you're going to eat it, so then the mezainis went only for what you had in mind.
What if I have a general, like...
Oh, that's what I'm saying. If you have a mezainis, you say, okay, I'm planning to eat whatever, so then it covers it. Then it covers everything, because then your mind was on it. But if it's only for what you have in front of you, that's what you're thinking, so it only covers what you're thinking. No, it's very logical. I mean, you make a bracha on what you're eating. So what you didn't have in mind, so you have to make a new bracha. But you wouldn't have to make 2 alamichias or 2 beri nefashis. Instead, let's say I had a piece of cake. I think I'm only eating the piece of cake and that's it. And then later I change, but I didn't make a bracha achrona yet. And then later I decide I'm going to eat some more cake. So I have to make another mezainis, right? Because I didn't have it in mind and it wasn't in front of me. Now I'm finished. I make 1 alamichia for all of it.
What if it's the same cake? I have one piece of cake and then I have more of the same cake in the fridge or something like that.
But it wasn't in front of you when you...
It wasn't in front of me. But
So then you'd have to make a new bracha, halachically.
Same cake.
Right.